Okay, a MESL. We have a really big chart. Let's talk about making a MESL. We got the inject number, we got scenario, we got date, time, controller, contact info, to, from, summary, content, expected action, and then instructions. Welcome to a really big chart. Oh, chart. Really big chart. Some of these are more important than others. If you're doing a really involved exercise, you will probably need all of these. I'm going to go through each column and explain their importance. I'm not going to generate an entire MESL here for you. Out of nowhere, that would take a long time. We might do a few lines though. Okay, so we have number. When you have multiple injects, especially when you're looking at hundreds potentially for a really complex exercise, you're going to want to be able to say at the controller level, hey, what do we do with inject number 10? So people know what line you're talking about. Each one of these is going to be its own line of stuff. So we have inject, for example, number 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Okay, so we have one scenario. If you have an exercise that has multiple scenarios that are integrating, because you could, for example, have a fire that happens at the same time as a tornado, that happens at the same time as a pandemic, that happens at the same time as an active shooter, that happens while you're hosting the Olympics. That is from a real exercise. I'm referencing a real exercise right now. That exercise was wild. You could have multiple things that are happening simultaneously. So sometimes you'll have to say, okay, which thing am I talking about here? So this could be scenario fire, right? This scenario could be fire. Now you could also have a forest fire with a building fire. There could be separate types of fires, but it's like this scenario sheet, this thing has happened, this is what this is related to. Okay, and these can bleed into each other, but whatever. Date and time. This is the date and the time in real time that you are injecting this inject. Okay, everything from contact info to number, everything from contact info to the left, this section is real world information. Everything in this section is make-believe. You'll see why. This is the real date and real time you're injecting this, because when the time comes up, okay, controller, do the thing. So this could be, for example, June, 15th, 2022, and this time could be at 4:35 a.m. Or very often this is done in 24-hour clock time. So this, they might not say 4:30, but if you went into, like 2 p.m., then this wouldn't say 2 p.m. This would end up saying 1400 hours, right? So, but decide what you're going to do here. Be consistent. Fine. Put in the time. Okay. Controller. This is the job or role of the person in the real world that is putting this in. So this is which controller is doing this. Now, if this is the head of running the whole operation in a more public sector environment, this is often called sim cell. So the simulation cell that's putting this together is what this is. This could be, controller whatever. This could be this person over there does this. If you have 5 people that are doing this, this could be Bob. This could be Bob, right? Good old Bob. Who knows? But whoever the controller is, that person and their info, what's their phone number or what's their email or whatever. Because if that inject doesn't go in, you need to be able to call them. Or if you're running this whole thing, the lead running the whole exercise, 5 minutes before this, you might just call Bob and say, Bob, you're up for inject 1. Please see your sheet. So this is running the exercise, okay? This section, so we have the to, from, summary, contact, expected action, instructions. And I'm going to be honest here, this chart's kind of lopsided. Normally this part of the chart is like this big, and then this part of the chart is huge. This part of the chart is huge because the summary and content is a lot. So this pink section, all of this is what's happening. This is the make-believe part, okay? Instructions is a bit special. In here, to is who am I telling this to, and not the individual person's name, but the actor. So if I am Alex and I am acting as the charge nurse in a hospital, this is to charge nurse, whoever that role is. It's not from Bob's MESL, it would be from whatever Bob is acting as to inject this. So this could be from hospital admin. So this could be hospital admin. This could be, email from hospital director. It could be something like that. Now, for summary, the summary is going to be what is happening here. So this could be building fire, admin sends email about incoming patients from building fire. Now the content is, quote, exactly what is being said. You're going to put in quote and you're going to put in the exact line of what they're going to say. So this is your script. If it is an email, then you're going to write the email, or you'll say, send out email attachment blank, right? If that could be in instructions. But the content is precisely what is being said. So your exercise begins and it's time to run this thing. You're going to have some sort of coded language, because if you're calling a live hospital that's running an exercise while they're still running a hospital, you'll usually call and you go exercise, 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 and you wait for call sign, exercise, 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 right? So that way you're identifying, I'm calling an exercise, I'm receiving, this is not real, got it. Because you can sometimes run exercises once again at the same time as they're still doing their job. So they do that, and then, and then you just read the script. You just read it. So you want this to be exactly what they're reading. When the controller is putting this inject in, they want to be able to call that, which they'll have in their notes, and they want to read the thing. That's it. Other than that, it's confirmation that this is an exercise inject. Other than that, you're good. Expected action. This is what you expect from the participant to do. So I would expect when they receive this for them to notify team. Hey, we have, an incoming building fire, expect X, Y, Z. They didn't give me more info, we'll expect back later. Or we might expect them to email back for more detail, or call, or contact. This expected action generally should come right out of the plan. You've inserted this thing, you have a plan for this thing, you have some sort of response action probably that you expect the team to do. This could come from the job-specific plan action thing. That's what you expect them to do. Instructions, there might be something unique to this inject that you would put in there, but sometimes instructions is blank. This is one inject. You could have an exercise that goes over a week, that goes 24 hours for an entire week, that has hundreds of injects if you're making something very, very detailed. There are very few of those that have ever been designed, but they do exist. A fire drill may have one inject, it may have three. Well, there's a lot of simple things that don't have this much detail. When you get into designing really, really sophisticated emergency exercises that have a lot of moving parts, you're going to be making something like this. I get that it may sound like a lot, but if you think about it, what am I talking about? Makes sense. When am I putting this thing in? I need to know that. Who am I actually contacting and how do I contact them? Right. Who's the actor? Who's the actor that's telling the actor the thing? What is the thing? And what do I expect them to do? It all makes complete logical sense. And you don't really need to lose anything here. Like, all of this is relevant information. And once you've done all the previous work, this kind of writes itself. Like, you can say, okay, well, what do I want to have happen? Like, there's a fire. How do I want to introduce it? Loud bang. Okay, so we have a loud bang. That's the summary. There's a loud bang. Content, bang. Sure. Expected action. And then, content might be, you hear a loud bang. Okay, fine. Expected action, scream. Okay, sure. Or whatever that you expect the action to be. From, to, etc. Okay, when do I want the loud bang to happen? Time, got it. Like, you can kind of go here and then backfill it in depending on what you want. MESLs and injects, basically 101, okay? That's what you're doing. Once you're done with all of this, you need to do some sort of debrief or after action report. I am going to magically teleport to our favorite chair with different lighting to talk about that. Magical teleportation. You need to find out about what you learned and what people have learned, what they know, the things they've discovered after the exercise or test or what have you has been done. Especially with exercises though. There's 3 things I want you to think about in particular. What we've referred to as a hot wash, what we refer to as a debrief, and those are slightly different, and what is an after action report. A hot wash is a type of debrief. It's a rapid debrief that is done immediately after something ends. So you finished your exercise. People are going to have things that are top of mind. You want to find out what they know, what they learned, things that they've observed that have to do with your plan, that have to do with whatever that they just participated in. So for that reason, you want to do it right away. You don't want to wait. You don't want to lose what they were thinking. Ask the participants first. Don't ask observers or controllers first. Participants will often change the feedback they give once someone who has seen the bird's eye view of everything operating gives their feedback. You want them to give you as much of their unvarnished opinion without all that other broader context information as early as possible. Also, you want to create an environment where people feel free to share things that they might otherwise be uncomfortable sharing. Very often in businesses, at work, etc., people will not want to say things that they think might make their boss angry, where they might look bad. So they will often tone down their feedback on something that could be a significant risk to the organization. The point of this whole process, is to address and control these sorts of risks to make the business safer or more profitable or less risky in general, right? That's the point of this. If they're underplaying or downplaying something like this, it goes against the purpose of why we're doing this entirely. So this is a bit of an organizational culture challenge. What you would have to do to, improve on this or leverage what you have on this is dependent on who you are, and it's organizationally specific. It's a thing. You're going to have to think about it, ideally. People are sometimes hesitant. Something to think about. Okay. With your hot wash, start with your participants, end with your controllers generally. You want to get what was done right, what could be improved on, what other suggestions do you have, general sort of information. That's what you're looking for. Did you have any ideas? Sure, get it out. If you think there is an issue with having people talk and wait for somebody else to say something, and you have a concern that your hot wash might go too long, you could break your hot wash into groups. You could have people write down their thoughts. There are many ways to receive this information. The idea with a hot wash, though, is they do it quickly right now. That's the hot wash. The more general debrief, when you say debrief in this sort of context, we're talking about reconvening a week later, 2 weeks later, and having some thought on, now that I've had some time to think about it, maybe we should do this. Now that I've had some time to, I had this inkling before, and then I came up with this idea, and now I have this longer suggestion of why don't we try this. It's still the general questions of what was done right, what could have been done better, what are some other sort of suggestions you have, but people have had some time to, I believe the phrase that's used these days would be they've had some time to cook. They've had some time to think about it. You will not get the same type of feedback you get from a hot wash. People will have forgotten certain things that they didn't get immediately, but some of the things they've remembered, they will have had more time to think on, right? That's the debrief. Once you've gotten all this feedback, you want to make an after-action report, or an AAR. Now, an after-action report is effectively, for these sorts of purposes, the same thing as an executive summary. You want to get relatively high level. What did we do? When did we do it? What did we learn from the thing we did? You've got your list, and you're not worrying about what you're going to use or not use from that list. You're just making a basic list of we had exercise thing at this time. These are our findings. Now, some of these findings we might not do anything with or use, but you have your total list of findings. Okay? That's the basic point of the AAR. Doesn't have to be long, doesn't have to be complicated. You're usually talking point form here, very executive summary style. There's many different types of AARs, especially when you get into like military documents. But this does not have to be complicated. Okay, it really doesn't. We just did this thing. We spent all this money, all this time doing this program. What did we get from it? Surely that's an important document. And that's basically it with exercises. There's more detail that can be gone into the way to manage controllers, manage participants, the way to run an exercise specifically. But in order to really do that justice, the content for that, and I'm going to see if we can realistically create this. There's some concern around confidentiality with this, so I'm not sure about, this is going to be a long-term project, a thought in making this, but what you'd want to do is basically have an additional camera kind of documenting or walking through people doing an exercise so you can kind of see from their multiple perspectives. I don't know if a traditional documentary would suffice because I'd want to demonstrate, okay, so you can see here when this thing happens, this is what they're seeing, this is why they make this decision. So you can walk through what's going on in their mind, kind of. We're going to do some thinking on how we could make that and not breach confidentiality. And if possible, then you'll see an additional video somewhere down the line. But other than doing something like that, this is essentially tests and exercises.